Recording, that's okay. All right, we are going to have a quick discussion here about the EAC integration that's set up between Banner and Blackboard for Walden. The main components of this are my outline here put together. It's a set of data files that are being sent, entries in the SIS Controller and data integration, and then there are some known limitations that kind of due to the data model we set up, I wasn't aware of some of the data scenarios in Banner, and then also just to some limitations in Banner that are currently in place. So we'll start with the data files. Let me get a share my screen here. Share your desktop. Okay, so right off the bat, they're going to be sending, well, maybe it makes, do you guys have an opinion if I start with the data files or with how it's going to look in Blackboard first? I guess it would make sense to show how it looks in Blackboard.
Can we start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, Jesse. So the basic idea here is that they wanted to be able to load user concentrations and program associations into Blackboard so they can be used for EAC reporting. So every student user in Banner is associated to a concentration. So how we're representing that is there's an institutional hierarchy structure in Blackboard, and then also where users are then associated. So I'll go over that real quick. Within the Walden University structure, there's now a college, level 1 setup. Then you have the 8 colleges. And I did try and get this set up with the structure so that this is very similar to how we're set up with the domains. Sorry, excuse me. With the domains, so that we've got the structure already in place when we eventually want to switch over from domains to institutional hierarchy. So you go, but the general structure is colleges, and then within the colleges you have program degrees. And you'll see the identifiers for each of these levels. They'll start with what they are. So this is a Walden program degree level. And then within the program degrees, you then will have majors. And you'll see it switches its identifier there. And then within the majors is when you then have your concentrations. And associations for users are only made to the concentration level. They do as a temporary situation in Banner before a user is settled on concentration, someone will be associated to a major and or program, but that data is not being sent to Blackboard because it's not pertinent to anything they need for EAC. So the first step of this process was to create this institutional hierarchy structure, and the second step is then to associate users, and I should probably pick users to a node. I have no idea if I picked a node with users. I did. So this node has, as you can see, 163 users associated to it. When we set this up, they did want the data back historically. So there's a couple years, I don't remember if it's 2 or 3 years of data that we load in the system for all the concentration associations. It's either 2 or 3. I'll have to go back and confirm that. But that's why you see associations for disabled users. So as part of the initial historical data load, in batches, I enabled all the users, made their associations, and then disabled them. So this is basically the data setup that's been put into Blackboard, the institutional hierarchy, and then the associations. This eventually is going to be used for an updated EAC tool, which will be able to consume this as part of its conditions when it's filtering on results. That part is just starting to be worked on in dev and QA right now, so that's not pertinent here. This is just to focus on the integration and setup made here. Any questions about the institutional hierarchy structure and where users are being associated?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. Well, first of all, what is EAC? What does it stand for?
Steve, Educational Assessment something consortium or something?
Corporation. Educational Assessments Corporation.
So is this some sort of a program that they are running in Walden?
EAC is a reporting tool. It's an add-on that allows them to draw metrics from Blackboard from things like, is it drawing metrics from the enterprise surveys? Is that,
No, it's from the goals or outcome.
oh, okay.
From the goals.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
that's right. You had done a TKT on EAC tool, Steve.
Yeah,
I do
yeah.
recollect now.
So
Yeah.
this is basically an update here, this structure here, so that Sherry can filter on a student's concentration.
you can say
Okay, and
show
that
me
is how
that.
the institution hierarchy. That was the second question I had. That why do we need to associate students with this detailed level of institution hierarchy?
Right.
Yeah.
And like Steve says, it's going to be used to give additional filtering options for the EAC tool.
Okay, that answers it. Thank you.
Okay. This does bring an interesting case. Well, people do technically change concentrations. So you will see, and it's not shown through, it is possible you'll see an active user have multiple different associations to a concentration node. That's just because what they can start in their first term in concentration A, and then by the third or fourth term say, no, I want to go with concentration B. But because the EAC data, they want to be able to say, I want to see what this person, if this person during that concentration, that's what they're going to see there, and it'll pull up the data historically. Or if they want to say, no, I want to see it when they're in this concentration. So we're maintaining that data historically. And this is kind of a good segment to the data files, because there's some data in there that you don't see that's exposed directly through the GUI. So there's going to be, sorry, I have some additional data files here that aren't needed. There's going to be two files. There's a structure file and a user association node file. The structure file, because it's a small set of data, is just running a complete refresh mode every day. Give me a sec, I'll show this. Let me make my text a little bigger. And let me know when everybody's good with the size.
It's good.
Okay. So this basically is just mimicking the structure that we see in the institutional hierarchy. It goes, college is first, program degree, majors, and you get all the concentrations. This is fairly straightforward.
Sorry, what file is this again, Phil?
This is the USW1 IH structure banner text file.
So it builds the structure, right?
Yes, this is the file where, so if you see problems in the structure, this is in the institution hierarchy that's set up here in the colleges, this is where you want to start there. Some of the limitations around this file are, well, we're using this in refresh mode, so if they change the name or they, so the way limitations of this, because they're not using, if they change the name of a node, it will update. That's the full, or excuse me, change the description of a node, which is what is, let's see if I can find which is obviously this description here, but the names are associated to, let me get back to the text file. The name is considered almost like part of the ID of it. You have the primary key, which is the external node key, and then you have the name, which in this case is the ID. So changing those fields, it does not update. Well, if you did just the name, it would, but because the same value is used as part of the external node key, if they need to change one of those, it's going to remove the old and add the new, and then it'll have to rebuild the whole structure. But the problem with that, and I did let them know about this, is it will then drop any of the associations that were, well, the concentrations, as long as they're only doing it at the college, program degree, or major level, it's not a big deal, because the structure itself will rebuild and the associations are to the concentration level, so fine. Well, actually, I would admit, I'm not 100% sure if you remove a program above, you remove a parent node, does everything underneath it delete? I think the answer is yes. So, yeah, basically, if they make a change to the ID or name, it's going to wipe out the structure. It'll get recreated, but then the concentrations will have to be put back in place. So there's one of the limitations of, because they don't have, in order for us to make the update where we're doing stores on new and updates, you need to know what the value of the external node key and name were before it was changed in banner, and they don't have that tracking information. So this is an example of the type of information they're going to have to track additionally in Banner in order for us to fully roll out a Delta model. So right now this is running refresh mode, so if they remove one or make the changes, it will flow in, but then there could be some issues with concentrations down the road. Where are the associations of those concentrations if some are missing? The colleges and program degrees say don't change. They usually only add. It's where you get the major and concentration level where we may occasionally see this. So that's the first file. The second file is the user to node association file, the IH associate node to user banner text file. This is just saying take this user, the external user key, associate it to this node, and then we, for Blackboard's infinite wisdom, they tell us we have to set a junction key. So that, because this really, we're just making concentration associations, it didn't need to be a concatenation of the two. And also because they wanted to have the idea of how do I tell which of these concentrations were made later. So what you have here is all you really needed initially to keep this unique, because it was supposed to be a one-to-one, was the user ID and then just saying concentration. But what we also did was we added term code and a timestamp of when the concentration association was made in Banner. That way, so if you see someone who's got two different associations, you can look at the external association key and say, oh, this was the first one and this is the second one. You could infer that information based upon when the association and the timestamp was made in Blackboard, but here is actually the information from when it was made in Banner, so you know for a fact. This does bring us to another one of our limitations that is known, and I kind of have to think about how we want to represent it, is one of the scenarios they didn't tell me was possible in our initial design of this was in term one, the user is associated to concentration A. And then 2 terms later, they're now associated to concentration B. But then you go forward again, and maybe another term, it's like, no, I want to go back to concentration A. So what you'd have is this same row of data being sent, but just with a different term and timestamp in the association key. But because the external user key and the external node key is the same, it's not going to make any changes in Blackboard. It's just going to throw an error saying, it's weird. The error it throws says is data source key not identified. And it really just means that this row of data is already in the system. I don't know. I haven't played enough to see if we put it in a different data source key, would it create a second association? Because I get why I would complain, because then it would be 2 associations for the same user and same concentration. So in that concentration A to concentration B back to concentration A scenario, the latest entry of that will not be in Blackboard. They'll still be able to filter on it in EAC, so this is not a huge functional issue, but they'll have to filter over time and courses slightly differently. But I'm guessing, Steve, and I'm not so familiar with EAC, that you're saying, give me this concentration in this term, and then it looks at the courses from there.
Yeah, I haven't even looked at the functionality of it yet. The only thing I saw was when I installed their latest B2, they had, for the nodes list, it was at the program level.
Okay. Well, they want to be able to filter at program or concentration.
Yeah, and I didn't see any concentration level, so that may be why Christopher said he had to rebuild make a new build.
Okay.
I don't know.
But yeah, so this is a limitation of the user associate node file. This is being processed as a Delta file, so they're just sending us any new user to node associations, user concentration associations made in the last 24 hours. Some limitations run this. Like I said, they don't know the before and after status, so we didn't have to get around or do the need for deleting or updating node associations. That's why we did this timestamp, so that they get that historical trail, because they they don't have that before and after to some extent. Well, I guess with concentrations they might, where they could have built hey, this is what it was before. I don't think you can actually update. That's what it was. You can't update a user to node association. Like where you update the user name or EPK. There's no new external person key value for associations. You just have to delete and recreate it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when not all the tracking was there to do that activity here, and that's where we said, okay, well, we're just going to need to add the timestamp so that we know which is the newest. Because refresh mode was not an option here.
So this timestamp information is there to understand at any moment of time what is the latest status.
What is the latest association?
Yeah, what is the latest association of a user?
Right.
And is this timestamp information exposed to anyone in the
No,
reports?
it's not exposed through the GUI. It's in there's nowhere really easy to put this in the GUI. So where I added it to was the external association key.
Right. So I mean, my point is that by looking at a report, would a person know what is the latest concentration of the user?
There's no way through the institutional hierarchy to pull that information. You'll have to have database access to figure that out.
So if a user is associated with two concentrations, it's just for us to figure out by looking at the timestamp, basically, right? Is what you're saying?
Yeah, you can look at the timestamp of the actual entry of the associations and using the Blackboard timestamp, or to be more concise, you can use the timestamp in the external association key for banner.
Okay. Okay. I mean, why would we need to look at the time? I mean, what is the latest concentration? Why would we have
that is something that is not applicable for us. It's applicable for the EAC tool.
Okay.
Depending on how they decide to filter, if they wanted to say, oh, I only want to look at if they say this user on their latest concentration, they would need that information. Versus.
Right, okay.
Versus if they're just saying, give me everybody in this concentration, that information is not as important. But I wasn't 100% sure how they were going to use this information in the EAC tool, so I wanted to give them as much information as possible.
Okay.
So those are the two data files that are sent. These are being processed by Blackboard once a day. The user files, the data files are generated, I believe, at 2 a.m. and they're processed at 5:30 a.m. That is so that the 4 a.m. user file can first be processed, and so that the highest number of that they're currently having a problem that they're occasionally sending us concentration associations before users show up in user file. They're looking into why that's happening. We saw a higher number of that because we realized we initially set this up where it was running before the user file is processed in Blackboard. What I think they may have to do is either move the processing up or say, don't send any association, wait 24 hours for sending associations. So I'm not sure how it's going to come out of that, but you're not seeing that in a large, but there was definitely, in the last 3 days, there were over 10 made that hit that scenario. So I'm going to have to go through and reprocess the last couple of days so that those ones that were missed because the users weren't in the system will then be picked up. But yeah, the banner team is aware of this and they are looking into it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So those are the two files. We actually did cover both of kind of like the known limitations in the setup here. The A to B to back to A concentration scenario, I'm not 100% sure how we would represent that because then you need to make two concentrations for the same user. So I'd have to really, I can think of different ways of dealing with this, but it's more of a change on Banner's side. And also we'll have to ask EAC how they'd want to represent that or how they're using this data. So if they're not using the timestamp data, then it's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. All right. Quick review on the SIS Controller entries for this. And this is something we should probably have a higher level meeting about how we want to manage different integrations from the same source. Because you think about the course processing, there's a separate SIS entry for the EAC files themselves. So we're going to have different controller entries potentially for different files, but they're coming. Both the files for course processing and EAC are really coming from Banner. Right now, when we look in the data integrations, there are two different data integrations being used, but to me the course processing is Banner data, so it should go in the Banner integration. So eventually I want to move that over. But so if you think about it, so is the enterprise survey data. That's really Banner data as well. So think about it, not something we need to answer here. For the pertinent for this discussion is there's a separate SIS entry, and then there is a general snapshot Banner integration I created for this. But we'll want to think long term, and I don't want to have the discussion here because we've only got 4 minutes and we've got our next call at 11, is how we want to segment data that is coming from the same data source but through separate running integrations. Something to think about. So yeah, but this is the basic setup there. I got a couple of minutes left. Any questions about the data files? Any questions about the SIS or DI setups or any of the known limitations? I see we lost Steve, unfortunately.
I mean, I had a question, but I don't think we have too much time. Question was about SIS setup and DI setup that consumes this data, and what is the folder location? And we can look at the
it's going to the default folder in Banner, because these are not legacy snapshot files. They're only coming once a day, so they are being placed at the, just with, I lost my window there all of a sudden. They are just being placed at the, I hate their update windows.
Okay, I had a question about the new SFTP server as well. Maybe
that's completely different topic. We'll talk about that.
No. I mean, I just need the information of.
That's Shane. You can talk to Shane about that on a different call.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're being placed at the default location. There's no reason to put them in their own location. They don't do a run flag. Right now they're the only integration sending this data. Actually, you did make a good point here, because I didn't think about it. Not the course processing. Where's the Resi? Oh, I think they're actually posting. I don't think they're using because at the time we didn't have the SIS controller. So for the Walden enterprise survey stuff, they're just posting those files directly to Blackboard. So that's because those are technically, but those are user associations as well. But those data files are being posted and not staged on the SFTP.
But then if our SIS controller is picking up isn't it scheduling the files?
No, it's not. The other integration using the other data integration for the enterprise survey, which I think, I'm trying to remember if that is.
I mean, we might have to take that.
That's actually at the course level anyway, so that's not a big deal. That's the course evaluations and the type. Yeah, that's at the course level. That's a course to node association, because that's saying these courses get this type of enterprise survey, type. That's what that's being used for. So it's a different, and it's being fed in the system differently, but the source is still Banner.
We're down to our last minute.
Yep.
Yeah. Phil, I think I'm not really very clear about the last part about the entire consumption of these files. We'll talk about it later, maybe.
Right, well, they're just two files. A structure file, and a user node association file that are placed on the SFTP at the default Walden structure file or default Walden file location.
Okay, so that is what my question was. So they do get placed at this default location of snapshot.
Right. They get placed at the default location, and then they're processed at 5:30 a.m. And then they'll show up in the archive. There's just a separate, the way the SIS controller creates a separate folder per integration. So here's the EAC file. Here's the processing of those files. All right, thank you guys. It's 11. I'll try and figure out how to get this recording off of here into our SharePoint site or our YouTube channel. Talk to you guys in 10 seconds or so.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bill. Bye.